A federal judge blocking the Trump administration from sending hundreds of unaccompanied minors back home to Guatemala. Some children were already on board when the planes were ordered not to take off.
And now one of President Trump's top advisors is responding, and we've got Bill Maluzhin live from Los Angeles with the back and forth on that. Hey, Bill.
Yeah, Julie, good morning to you. So those unaccompanied Guatemalan migrant children were potentially just hours away from being deported yesterday. Some of them were literally sitting on the tarmac in Texas when an emergency order came down from a federal judge blocking those flights from taking off. Now, that order came down from federal judge Sparkle Suknanan in Washington, D.C. She's a Biden appointee. This is after attorneys and advocates representing the Guatemalan children argued that the Trump administration was violating U.S. laws and potentially sending the children to peril in their home countries without giving them due process. Now, the Trump administration countered that it's reuniting the children with their parents or guardians in Guatemala who sought their return, with a DOJ lawyer describing it as, quote, outrageous that the plaintiffs are trying to, quote, interfere with reunifications. Now, before issuing her order blocking the flights to Guatemala, Judge Suknanan said in part, quote, I have the government attempting to remove minor children from the country in the wee hours of the morning on a holiday weekend, which is surprising, but here we are. I have conflicting narratives from both sides here. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller slammed the judge, posting on X in part, quote, the Biden judge is effectively kidnapping these migrant children and refusing to let them return home to their parents in their home country. Now, these children have been in the care of HHS's Office of Refugee Resettlement, with an official there saying the children should be removed.
These children should be reunited with their parents. If their parents are in another country and there's no credible fear claim, then those children should be repatriated, reunited with their parents in their country of origin.
Now, we're talking about roughly 600 Guatemalan children here. They came to the U.S. illegally and unaccompanied, largely via human smugglers. Judge Suknanan's order right now blocks DHS from removing the children while the legal fight plays out over the coming weeks. We'll send it back to you.
Bill Maluzhin, thank you so much. Kevin.
For more on this, let's bring in former HHS advisor and retired chief of Border Patrol, Chris Clem. You know, Chris, this is frustrating because we're talking about something very, very serious here. And if you're attempting to repatriate young children back with their families, it would seem to be an obvious thing to do. And yet, I want to share part of what the judge had to say about this. This is Judge Cobb's opinion. The court does not cast doubt on the constitutionality of the expedited removal statute, nor on its longstanding application at the border. It merely holds that in applying the statute to a huge group of people living in the interior of the country who have not previously been subject to expedited removal, the government must afford them due process. The procedures currently in place fall short. That sounds like an argument for Congress, not an argument for the court, because there is a procedure in place. What do you think?
Well, first of all, good Labor Day morning to you both up there. But, look, this deportation halt with the Guatemalan children, this is something that began with my team when I was up at HHS earlier this spring. This was a coordinated effort with heads of state from the country of Guatemala, embassies, consul officers. We had this all planned out to see this halted. And just like Stephen said, and even like John said in that clip, this is a reunification. This is what Guatemala wanted. This is just preposterous, not surprising, but disappointed that this judge would do this. In regards to expedited removal, the law is very clear that we have the right to do that. In fact, I remember as a young agent back in the late 90s having to drive 2 or 3 times a week for a 2-week period, getting the additional training so we can use this law in the best interest of the country. Again, this is a law in the books by Congress that has restrictive policy that's controlled by the executive. In this case would be a commissioner or a DHS secretary. These are all tools in the toolbox for immigration enforcement officers and agents to use to make sure that we can safely and effectively control our immigration system. Ridiculous that, again, Open borders advocacy groups and activist judges are getting in the way of government efficiency.
And this is what's interesting, because one would think that the repatriation of individuals who are children back with their families, back to their country of origin, at the request of that country would be a no-brainer. That would seem to fly on both sides of the political perspective, but apparently that's not the case with respect to this judge's opinion. On the other hand, I have to say, Chris, there are a number of cases that you and I have had a chance to talk about where you have individuals who have committed heinous crimes, and yet people are saying, well, let's go slow. And others are saying, listen, let me point to a guy like Jonathan Gonzalez-Reyes as an example of someone who clearly needs to be out of this country. And again, underscoring the idea that we need to make sure there is a crackdown, especially on those who are committing serious crimes here. We're talking about a person, look at this rap sheet, convicted of child pornography, distribution, possession. This, I believe the administration would argue, is exactly why the immigration crackdown, especially on criminal illegal migrants, has to continue.
Look, this is what the president talked about when there's bad hombres. Look, not everybody that comes into this to the country, whether they cross illegally or not, are bad people. But we cannot run the risk by allowing people like this gentleman, I shouldn't say gentleman, this thug, to actually be in the country. This is ridiculous. This is exactly, Kevin, you're exactly right. This is why this administration is prioritizing immigration enforcement and accountability so we can get these people. Everyone that come into custody are taken into custody, and that is part of due process. So we can go through their immigration history, go through their criminal record, and give them the consequences they absolutely are required to enforce the law. This is why people have to be arrested. It's the first step in their due process.
And cities like Chicago and others continue to be recalcitrant in this effort when the administration has been clear the primary focus is removing criminal illegal aliens from the country, and that would not only seem to be lawful, but obviously enhance the safety and security of Americans across the country. Chris, great to have you in. We appreciate your time on a holiday weekend. Have a good one.
You do the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, it's Will Kane. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Kane podcast for full episodes right now.